Today is kind of a fun video. So we are wrapping up 2024, and I don't know how you guys are, but I always like to kind of look back at the year, whether it be through photos or videos or fun moments. And since I've hopped into reading a little bit more, it's been a lot of fun to look back at the year in terms of book and just see what my favorite series were and that sort of a thing. I'm very much the type of reader that I like to read what I like to read. And in order to kind of keep myself out of reading slumps, I feel like I get into reading slumps when I'm trying to force myself to read either a certain type of book or a certain book in general. So I found that what works best for me to kind of keep me out of those slumps and just keep me going, I guess, is if I'm craving a certain type of book, just read it. Like, don't feel guilty in that, you know? Sometimes I'm in the mood for a literary masterpiece, and other times I'm in the mood for junk food in terms of a book type of a thing, you know, just something I'm going to enjoy, something fairly predictable, something that's going to make me laugh. And so I think that has been kind of my mantra throughout the year of just read what you want to read whatever you're in the mood for, and that's okay. You know, I don't have to force myself into anything. So that being said, I definitely noticed a pattern as I was looking back at the year. This year, I was very much in the mood for your fantasy, romance. There's a definite theme that I think you're going to notice. As I was debating, at first I was going to do my top 24 books of 2024 and kind of break them up. But I read a lot of series and I didn't want to go through, you know, book 1, book 2, book 3. So then I was like, well, maybe my top 10 series. But naturally, because everything falls that way, there were 11 series that were in my list and I couldn't narrow it down by even one. So we're gonna do just my top series. If we really wanted, we could say my top 11 series of 2024, but that doesn't have a good ring to it, so take that for what you will. But anyways, you'll definitely notice a theme as I talk about these different books that I really enjoyed for the year 2024. So let's just hop into it, okay? Let me grab my notes here. Okay. Let's just go ahead and hop back into it. This has really no order if we're going to talk about it. If we're being real, you ask me tomorrow, the list is going to be totally different. So it feels a little bit arbitrary to pick an order, go through all that effort, when in reality, it kind of just depends on my mood. It depends on what I'm in what I'm feeling. They all were good for different reasons. They all had things that maybe weren't the best, you know, it's really hard to say. So anyways, let's just hop into it, top to bottom. The first series I want to talk about today is the Peaches and Honey series. It's a duology and it is completed, which is super nice. This book has such an interesting premise. Basically, you start, I think it's in 1100 or somewhere in the 1100s that the timeline starts, and you're following a girl and she's young adult, I want to say, and basically she has a run-in with a stranger who leads her to this place and gives her a peach and just tells her to, you know, like, have this peach, you saved me, I'm going to save you. She takes a bite of the peach, turns out to be a gift of immortality, and she never ages, she never goes. And this story is intriguing because it follows this same character for the next like 700 or 800 years into modern times, essentially. And you go through time and it's a really intriguing world. It's a really cool concept that is very unique and original, and I really appreciated that. And so it got me thinking about a lot of things. It was very well done and you feel very connected to the characters. I am a very character driven person. I care a lot if a character is well written, and so I really liked that series and that aspect. So that is Peaches and Honey, and that's a duology. Next is Thrown in the Dark. I believe this is the Villains and Virtues trilogy. It is completed, and there are 2 additional books that are not part of the trilogy. They're kind of those bonus books. I think we're seeing that a lot more, where an author will write a series and then they want to expound on a couple characters and their lives and things like that. And so they'll write another book to create a little bit of closure for that particular character. It's kind of fun. I think the trilogy is phenomenal. I think the 2 additional books, it's not like a duology or anything. It's just 2 separate books that follow 2 characters in the original trilogy. Both very well done. They're not necessary to read for the plot though, so if you are not into those types of things, you don't have to read them. But I loved the Villains and Virtues trilogy. It made me laugh, it made me cry. It also, you know, just to kind of nerd out a little bit, it has some really good concepts about what is good, what is evil, and that sort of, and so I just feel like, again, really well written, really well done, and the characters are to die for. Like, you are rooting for these characters by the end. It's got some really, really satisfying moments in there. Again, I laughed out loud. I don't often laugh out loud, you know, when people type LOL and they've got like a deadpan face. That's me. But this book actually made me laugh out loud. It was described as like a D&D campaign written in a story, and I feel like that's kind of accurate. So if you're looking for just a good, fun read, it's a good one. I think I mentioned this in one of my previous videos, but this series is steamy, but not necessarily spicy. In the third book, you do get some spice. Very well done and very well deserved, which is important to me. So that is the Villains and Virtues series and the 2 accompanying books. I believe they're called Bound and Tide and Bound to Fall are the 2 separate books as well. I'll put the correct names here if I got that wrong. Anyways, next series that I really liked. This is actually more of a standalone. It's a book, and it's a part 1 and it's a part 2. And I read the original series. It's the Lachlan Feuds. I believe I've already done a video on that one as well. I read that series in 2023, so that's not kind of part of this, but the authors, Robin Molly and Ellie Madison, they have since written a book that accompanies the main character's perspective throughout throughout that completed series, which you don't get in the original series. And so it's really intriguing. You're kind of reliving the same story, but from a different perspective. Part 1 is out now. I believe part 2 comes out in January, which kind of follows books 3 and books 4 in the Lachlan Food series. So I've read part 1, absolutely loved it. Books 3 and books 4, oh my gosh, I can't speak. Books 3 and 4 were 2 of my favorite ones in the original series. So I am clenching my butt cheeks waiting for that next book. But January is the official release date. It can't be pushed back anymore. I've been following very closely, and I'm excited to read the next one. So single book, not necessarily a series, but that was one of my favorite books of 2024. Next one, this is another standalone. It's called Attending the Commoner's Ball. It was a lot of fun. It was just kind of a breath of fresh air. And you know, when I read this, I am currently on book 8 of Throne of Glass. I'm in the tail end. I'm in the thick of the war, you know, the thick of everything. And I think I picked up Attending the Commoner's Ball when I was in like book 4 or book 5, and I was kind of realizing I am in this for the long haul. And it's a great series. I'm going to touch on that one later, but I just needed a little bit of a breath of fresh air, just something that wasn't quite so high stakes. Basically, you're following this girl, and she is from a small town within this kingdom, and in order to better provide for her family, she moves into the main city from this small town, and she is working as a seamstress. She's living in a girls' home or a community home where she's got to work her share just to kind of make ends meet, and she's trying to save up so that way she can bring her parents out as well, so that way her dad can get good care. He's chronically ill, so she's just trying to make ends meet. But she gets the idea, and there's an invitation that goes out for a commoner's ball, which I guess kind of the vibe that you get within the story is it's a commoner's ball, but it's for like the upper lower class, you know? And so she just kind of says, you know what, I'm gonna go. I'm a commoner, aren't I? And everyone is kind of like, you're crazy, don't do this. So she gets wrapped into all these silly little things, and before you know it, she has one of the princes constantly pining for her attention, and she absolutely does not want it. And then the other prince is trying to get the first prince to stop. And it just kind of becomes this fun little triangle of what is going on, and it's a lot of fun. The ending is really cute, and it's just I felt good, you know? I read it over Thanksgiving, read it within a couple days, made me happy. Yeah, I don't know, just any book that makes me feel good. You know, when I was saying sometimes I'm in the mood for a literary masterpiece when I've got my mind going in 1,000 different directions. This was when I just wanted to feel nice and cozy and good for the holidays. And it did exactly that. It was perfect. That is Attending the Commoner's Ball. This next book, this is not a standalone, but it is the first book in a series, and I don't believe any more books have come out yet. So I've only read the one. It's 5 Broken Blades. I really liked this one because, again, it was a very original kind of an idea. You know, I've seen books similar to this, but I feel like this one was really well done. You have 5, I believe, POVs within the series, and you have 5 different people that you're following that are they are hired to do something, and they have differing interests, but they're all kind of forced to work together. And so it just creates a very interesting dynamic of who trusts who and what's going on. Are we gonna regret this type of a thing? But then you kind of see how it all comes together. So I was very much on the edge of my seat with that one. I'm excited for the sequel. I will say, in terms of writing style, it was not my favorite. I found myself not quite as enveloped in the world as I would have liked, as some of these other books were able to do. But that being said, it still did a great job, and it was a great concept, and at the end of the day, I was still sucked into the story all the same. So I would say that this was one of my favorites of 2024. It wasn't my favorite, but they did a really good job, if that makes sense. Next, we're gonna get into the Daughter of No World series. Oh, this is a 4-book series, and it is completed. It is phenomenal. I love the main characters. This was it's one of those bigger, I wouldn't say huge like masterpiece, but the characters are so well done and so well developed, and there's so much dimension to each of them. I don't even want to say like kind of morally gray, you know, it's a very interesting character arc that you get to follow with these guys. I mean, you kind of know that they're going to be endgame, but I feel like the author did a really good job of keeping it interesting. You were constantly on your toes of what's going to happen next. I feel like this was one, it was really hard for me to put down, and I was constantly thinking about the story, even when I was at work or otherwise, you know, doing other things. I was constantly just thinking about the story and how it went. I feel like it was just very artfully done. Some of the characters really pissed me off, but I think that was on purpose. I read this one a little bit earlier in the year. This one was a really good one. So if you're looking for a good book, it's a bit of a time investment, and just kind of like mentally, there's a lot that goes into this book. You're following quite a few characters, and I remember the jump from book 1 to book 2 was a bit jarring, and it took me a little bit to get into book 2, but once I realized what was going on, I was like, oh, this is so cool, which I don't think everyone had that same sentiment. I think some people were a little bit like, I don't really like this. They ended up DNFing it halfway through book 2, but just the investment of the characters really pays off, and it's a very intriguing idea. Again, very unique magic system, very unique world building. This one, it was really well done. So anyways, that is one, I think I would recommend that to my family and friends as well. But Daughter of No Worlds, loved it so much. This next one I found on Kindle Unlimited that I was pleasantly surprised by. I actually read it a couple times. The first time I read it, I think I read the whole series in a weekend. It was like a day per book. So I flew through it, but then I wanted to go through it a little bit more because I think I missed a lot of information that first time. But this is the North Queen Trilogy, and it follows a girl, and you like start the series. She wakes up with literally no memory in the middle of a forest, and she's found by this guy, and like, you know, she's found by this guy, and he's like, oh my goodness, I haven't seen you in 2 years. And he kind of fills you in a little bit that like, there was a prophecy that came out that you were going to be kidnapped by an enemy kingdom. So to prevent that from happening, we sent you away to a place where nobody knew for 2 years. And, you know, to prevent this from happening. And the cost, I guess, was her memory. And so she's trying desperately to reintegrate back into society. And it turns out she's a princess. She has all these things, and she literally has no memory of any of these things. And the person who found her apparently was like her childhood best friend. But again, literally no memory of any of this. And so I really liked the idea. It was something, I don't think I've seen that. I can't think of a story where that was used, especially like right at the beginning. They expound it very well. It's very in-depth, like plot-wise, and it's got a lot of political intrigue. That one, I was surprised at the amount of political intrigue. You have a lot of different perspectives that you're following. I think it was just very unexpected. This is one where nobody ends up with exactly who you expect, and there are some happy endings, there are some not so happy endings for characters, but it feels very realistic, and overall, the ending to the story you feel very well deserved, I guess I would say. I liked the writing style a lot of this author. Like I said, the first time I read it, literally, I think there's 3 books in the series, and I breezed through it over like a 4-day weekend. So this is one I could not put it down. I appreciated the political intrigue. I will say, I think the reason I went through it so fast was because I kind of breezed through a lot of like the politics talk faster than I probably should have. So that wasn't my best moment, but I read through it slower. I was able to get a lot more out of it, and I still feel like this was one that I really loved. I feel like this one explores a lot of interesting concepts as well. It's very morally gray. Anyways, that was The North Queen. This next one, this is a duology. It's Where Skies Fall and Where Oceans Burn. This one was definitely, I wouldn't put this at the top of my list, but it definitely made the list. Mostly because it was just kind of what I was craving. I wanted something that didn't have to do with Fae or some big war where they're, you know, you've got like 10 different people that you're trying to follow and keep track of. I just wanted something interesting and fun. And so this one, you have 2 different people, or 2 different communities. You have the community of the sky, or the people of the sky, and the people of the ocean. And they're constantly at war with each other. I know I just said I don't want a war, but they're constantly at war with each other. They're constantly kind of getting into little skirmishes until the 2 of these people end up meeting in kind of a happenstance sort of a way. This one, you're following kind of these 2 main characters. One is from the ocean people, one is from the sky people, and they kind of end up, there's this impossible task that they have to accomplish, and they kind of learn more about their people that they didn't understand initially, or that they didn't expect. So just a very intriguing idea. And was it the best writing? No. Was it the best plot? No. Was it the best character development? Probably not, but it was a fun idea. And there were plot holes. I chose to overlook them for the sake of what I was there for, and it was good. So it made the list. If you're looking for something that doesn't take a lot of brain power, I would say Where Skies Fall and Where Oceans Burn is a good place to go. Next series, this one probably wasn't my favorite in terms of writing, but I loved the story and I loved the characters. Dark Shores and Dark Skies. This one is exploring a world that is literally cleaved into. You cannot travel between the 2, or as far as these people know, you can't travel between the 2. And there are 2 completely separate worlds. And this is kind of the story of when those worlds collide. You're following a commander in an army, you're following a pirate's daughter, you're following the daughter of a diplomat. There's just a lot of really interesting stories that are going on, and I feel like it's fun to see how the worlds collide. The interesting thing about this, I believe Dark Shores and Dark Skies take place at the same time, so you can read them in either order. I don't know if there's a way to do a tandem read, but I think they're happening at the same time, and then the book that comes afterwards, Gilded Serpent, I want to say, is kind of the culmination of the 2. So it's like book 1-2, book 1-2, book 3, and then book 4 is coming out next year. So still not a completed series, but a good series nonetheless. Lots of fun to get into. I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun reading this one, and I'm still invested in the characters, even though it's been like 8 months since I've read any of the books that involve them. Next series, this was at the beginning of the year. I was nursing my child. I was nursing my child a lot, and so I was reading a lot, and I was trying to do it with a physical copy of this book. And this is kind of when I made the decision I'm exclusively or mostly either audiobooks or on my Kindle. Anyways, I was reading ACOTAR, and I read the first three books in the series. So I've read A Court of Thorns and Roses, A Court of Mist and Fury, and A Court of Wings and Ruin. I really tried to get into the last two. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Books 1 through 3 I really liked. Once I read book 4, I had a really hard time with it, and I just personally didn't love the additional character thing. I have my feelings about Sarah J. Maas. I think she's a great writer. I wouldn't say she's my personal favorite writer. That's just been my experience with the series that I've read from her. A Court of Thorns and Roses, she's a good writer. I don't love how she does her political intrigue. Don't hate me. I'm so sorry. Come for me in the comments. Let's talk about it. Let's have a good conversation. I find myself getting a little bit sick of the fae aspect. Like, it's good for a time, but I always find that I have to take a break. So like after I read ACOTAR and I read this series, I had to take a serious break. And that's when I was trying to find like different types of magic systems and different sorts of things. So that's what led to a lot of these other books that I've been talking about today, of just trying to find something a little unique and different and just out of the box, because I just kind of got sick of the fae and just the way that they work and that sort, and I just couldn't do it over and over again with all these different books. So that was ACOTAR. I did really like it. It was a lot of fun to read. I liked Feyre. Rhysand. I pronounced it Rhysand for a really long time until apparently Book Talk told me that was wrong. He's an attractive character, and I do really like it. So really well done. Enjoyed the book a lot. But that is ACOTAR. And again, that was at like very beginning of the year that I was reading that one. So that was a long time ago. Final series that I wanted to talk to you about, and this is, I'm still reading it. I'm in book 8, but I wanted to talk to you about Throne of Glass. Very well done. I kind of just touched on this with ACOTAR, but she does a really good job, and I do enjoy her books. I really do. I think I just find that I get kind of bogged down by a lot of the political intrigue, and it just sometimes feels like a lot. Like we are throwing a lot into these, and it just is not as compelling as I would like it to be. I found that I had to take some breaks here and there, get myself, pick myself back up with a couple other books. But I definitely still am wanting to finish the series. I am invested in the characters. I love the characters. I think I have found that I have some differing opinions than Book Talk or a lot of people on Book Talk. I know the general consensus is that like Tower of Dawn is kind of just the book to get through. And there's the whole tandem read that you do where you're seeing the different perspectives in that portion of the story. I did not do the tandem read, and maybe that was my problem, was I should have done the tandem read. I think if I had to pick a favorite between Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn, I would have picked Tower of Dawn. Again, I kind of mentioned it, I'm very character driven, and I feel like I learned a lot about those characters. A character that I originally was very frustrated with, I feel like went through a lot of growth in that book. So that was something that personally I really liked, but I was talking to my sister-in-law about it, and for those exact reasons, she didn't like Tower of Dawn. She really didn't like those characters and just didn't care for their side of the story, which I get. You know what I mean? I get it. I don't agree with it, but that's okay. Everyone has their different perspectives. I have really liked the story so far, and I will say it has kept me interested for 8 books, which is a lot. So currently reading Kingdom of Ash. I'm about halfway through it. I'll probably finish it by the time I upload this video, but I'm liking it so far. I find myself needing to take more breaks because of all the different war and things like that, but really it's been good. 11 favorite books of the year, favorite series of the year. If you've read any of these, please leave your thoughts down below. What books did you like? What books did you not like? Do you agree with any of the things that I've said? I will say I found myself recently craving a little bit less of the fantasy and more. I'm more open to the idea of contemporary stories. So if you have any books that you think I would like, I'm always open to recommendations. So please leave those down below as well. Anything that you do to interact with this video helps a ton. So liking, commenting, following, turning on notifications, anything like that will make a huge difference for me, and I would seriously appreciate it so much. But anyways, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Thank you.